Hi, my name is Margaret Langley. I'm 48 years old and I've lived in the same town, Maple Hollow, Vermont, my whole life. It's one of those places where the postman knows your dog's name and the grocery store still sells milk in glass bottles. Quiet, predictable, steady. For the past 16 years, I've worked the night shift as a nurse at the county medical center. I never married, never had children. I just took care of people. That's what I do. And last April, they were going to give me an award for it, a recognition ceremony at the town hall. Nothing fancy, just a small dinner, some speeches, a plaque with my name. Still, it meant something to me. I had bought a navy blue dress. First one I'd purchased in years. Pressed it. Hung it up the night before. I even scheduled my first hair appointment in nearly a decade. For once, I let myself be proud. Then my sister showed up. Her white SUV pulled into my gravel driveway like a storm front. The windows rolled down, but she didn't get out. Rachel, my younger sister by 6 years, leaned over the passenger seat and called out, voice loud over her blaring pop music. "Hey, Mags, I need you to watch the kids for a few days. I'm flying out in an hour." Before I could speak, the back door opened. 2 kids spilled out, Owen, 6, and Emma, 5. They were wearing pajamas, each holding a worn-out stuffed animal. A duffel bag hit the porch with a thud. Rachel gave me a wink. "There's medicine in the bag, I think." "Love you, sis." And then she drove away. Just like that. I stood there on my porch, holding the hand of a child who was not mine, watching the car disappear down the road. The dress still hung inside, waiting. The ceremony went on that evening, without me. A chair with my name on it sat empty. Someone texted to ask if I was okay. I wrote back, "Family emergency." The next morning, I opened the duffel bag. Inside, a crumpled shirt, 2 mismatched socks, an empty bottle of cough syrup, and a scribbled note. "Owen's allergic to something. Maybe peanuts? Emma's got a cough. No dairy? No health insurance cards? No contact numbers? No plan." I waited for Rachel to call. She didn't. I checked my phone during every lunch break, every diaper change, every trip to the pharmacy. Nothing. Later that week, I overheard a coworker say my name came up at the award dinner, but just once. They moved on quickly. No one followed up. I wasn't forgotten. I was erased. And for a while, I told myself this was temporary, that Rachel would be back in a week or 2, that this wasn't the new normal. But then the weeks stretched on. School forms arrived. Pediatricians needed signatures, and Owen started calling me Mom by accident. One night, he had a fever. I sat up with him for hours, wiping his forehead with a cool cloth. Just before he fell asleep, he whispered, "You smell like pancakes. I like it when you're here." I laughed softly. Then I cried. No one had asked me to step in. No one had thanked me. But here I was, showing up, night after night, day after day. It wasn't glamorous, it wasn't recognized, but it was real. I missed my big moment, my only public moment maybe. But as I watched Owen sleep, hands still curled in mine, I realized not every victory has applause. Some are just quiet, steady acts of love. And maybe that's the kind that matters most. By the end of the second week, my kitchen table looked more like a triage center than a place to eat. Cough syrup bottles, school forms, sticky notes with reminders like, "Pack lunch, no dairy," and "Owen, flu shot next Tuesday." Emma had started drawing smiley faces on every napkin I packed in their lunchboxes. She called them napkin hugs. I was running on autopilot. Work all night at the hospital, home by 6, make breakfast, dress the kids, drop them at school, nap for 2 hours, grocery shop, pick them up, help with homework, feed, bathe, bedtime, then back to work. I kept telling myself, this is just temporary. Rachel will call. She'll come back. But the silence grew louder with each passing day. One morning, I overheard Emma telling her teacher, "My mom lives in Paris, but my real mommy is Auntie Mags. She makes cinnamon toast." I froze. It felt sweet and heartbreaking all at once. I wasn't their mom. I hadn't given birth. I hadn't chosen this. But I was there. And the thing is, kids don't care about titles. They care about presence. One evening, Owen came home from school coughing badly. His teacher had noticed he was wheezing during recess. I rushed him to urgent care. The nurse raised her eyebrows when I hesitated on the intake form under relationship to patient. I scratched out aunt and wrote guardian, then quietly added in parentheses, for now. The pediatrician, new in town, fresh from residency, glanced at me over his clipboard and asked, "Where's their actual mother?" I didn't answer. Not because I didn't know what to say, but because the truth was too messy for his 15-minute appointment window. That night, after the kids were in bed, I sat on my porch swing, wrapped in an old quilt. The Vermont air had turned crisp again. I stared out into the dark and wondered when Rachel had decided I didn't matter, if she ever did. My sister and I weren't close growing up. She was the wild one, always chasing the next shiny thing. I was the one cleaning up after. But when our mother died last year, I thought maybe we'd start over. We sat together at the funeral, shared memories, even made a plan to host Thanksgiving together. Turns out that plan never made it past the church parking lot. I began to document everything, not out of spite, but out of necessity. Every doctor's visit, every pharmacy receipt, every daycare drop-off. I bought a binder and labeled it just in case. Some nights, I'd catch myself staring at the framed photo of Rachel holding Owen as a baby, her smile wide, proud. Mine wasn't in the photo. I had taken it. Like so many moments in our lives, I was behind the camera holding things together. That's the thing about being the reliable one. People stop checking if you're okay. They assume you'll figure it out, that you don't need support. But I did. God, I did. One day, the school counselor called me in. Not because the kids were in trouble, quite the opposite. Emma had drawn a family portrait, her, Owen, and me holding hands under a rainbow. "I just wanted to thank you," the counselor said gently. "Not every child in transition has someone as steady as you." I swallowed the lump in my throat and managed a quiet, "Thank you." That night, I pulled out my old planner and wrote a single line across the page in bold pen. This isn't temporary anymore. I wasn't just filling in. I was the one showing up. I was the one they reached for when they were scared. I was the one making lunch, fixing boo-boos, and sitting through parent-teacher meetings. Rachel hadn't called once, not a single text, not even a postcard. I didn't know where she was. I didn't know when or if she was coming back. But I knew one thing for sure. The kids were staying with me, and ready or not, I was becoming someone I never thought I'd be. A mother. There's a kind of silence that settles in after too much waiting. The kind that isn't peaceful but heavy, like standing in an empty church long after the service has ended, wondering if someone forgot to lock the door. That's where I found myself one cold Wednesday evening in late April. The kids were asleep. Emma had a crayon still tucked in her hand. Owen's shoes were tossed just inside the door, one sock balled up inside the other. The TV hummed low in the background, but my world was quiet. Too quiet. Rachel still hadn't called, not once. It had been almost 6 weeks. No texts, no emails, no emergency contacts, no word from anyone on her side of the family. It was as if she had fallen off the map and left her children floating behind. And me? I had officially become invisible in my own life. That night, I poured myself a cup of tea and sat at the kitchen table, the same table now buried under school projects, permission slips, and sticky cereal bowls. I stared at the binder I'd labeled just in case weeks earlier. It was time to add more pages. I began printing every receipt, every medical note, every school email. I took photos of doctor appointment confirmations, allergy lists, even lunch menus with Emma's name circled. I created a folder on my computer labeled Guardianship Documentation. And then I started a journal. It wasn't poetic, just facts. April 19th, Emma had fever, called Nurse Line. No call from Rachel. April 21st. Owen asked why his mom doesn't FaceTime. Said I make better grilled cheese anyway. Some part of me felt guilty for documenting it all, as if I were preparing for a battle I didn't want to fight. But another part of me, the nurse in me, knew better. When a situation gets out of control, you gather data, you stay calm, you document, and I was done pretending this would fix itself. I visited the courthouse website and began reading about emergency guardianship. I didn't understand all the legal language, but one line stood out. A consistent caregiver may petition for temporary custody when the biological parent is absent for an extended period without reasonable contact. That was me. I was the consistent caregiver, whether I had planned for it or not. Still, it felt terrifying. What if Rachel suddenly returned and took the kids back? What if she said I had overstepped? And yet what scared me more was what would happen if I didn't act. What if Owen had an asthma attack and I wasn't legally allowed to approve treatment? What if Emma needed emergency care and no one could sign the form? What if, despite everything I had done, someone showed up and said I had no right to keep them? So, I made an appointment with a local family law attorney. His office was just above a bakery, and it smelled like cinnamon rolls and printer ink. His name was Mr. Whitaker, a kind-eyed man in his 60s with silver hair and a voice like a church deacon. I brought the binder. He flipped through it slowly, occasionally nodding, occasionally frowning. When he looked up, he said simply, "You've been doing the job of a mother for nearly 2 months. You have more documentation than most clients do after 6. I exhaled, realizing I'd been holding my breath since he started page 1. But, he added, family court doesn't run on fairness. It runs on facts. You'll need to show abandonment. And, if you're ready, we'll start a guardianship petition. Ready? Number. But I was tired of being a placeholder. I didn't want the kids to wake up one day and find themselves packed off like luggage to a woman who hadn't even called on Emma's birthday. So I nodded, and we started the paperwork. That night, I tucked the kids into bed like always. I read Goodnight Moon for the 100th time. I picked up the Legos off the hallway floor. I turned off the porch light. But something was different. I wasn't just the one staying behind anymore. I was the one stepping forward. Not out of revenge, not out of resentment, but out of love. A quiet, steady love that had no name in a family tree, but carried the weight of motherhood just the same. It happened on a Monday morning in early June. I was folding laundry when the doorbell rang. Outside stood Rachel. Her hair was lighter, probably from sun in some tropical place, and her sunglasses were designer, perched on her head like a tiara. She didn't hug the kids. She didn't even bend down to greet them. She just said, "Hey, I'm back. Thanks for everything." I stared at her, stunned. Emma clung to my leg. Owen didn't say a word. Rachel walked right past me into the house like she owned the place. "I'll be taking them now. I've booked us a week in Florida before school starts, sort of a welcome back trip." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. Instead, I went to my room, closed the door, and called Mr. Whitaker. The next morning, we filed the emergency guardianship petition. Rachel was served 3 days later. That's when things got ugly. She posted on Facebook, claimed I had stolen her children, said I was obsessed, that I was bitter and trying to replace her. Friends and distant relatives shared her post. Some commented things like, "Stay strong, Mama, and fight for your babies." But the kids didn't want to go with her. That weekend, Owen had a nightmare. He crawled into my bed, sobbing. "I don't want to go. Please don't make me." Emma, too, stopped drawing smiley faces. She asked if she could take her blanket to Florida, just in case you're not there. I told them gently, "I'm doing everything I can." And I meant it. The day of the hearing, I wore the same navy blue dress I had planned to wear to the award ceremony months ago. It still fit, though it hung looser now. I hadn't had much appetite lately. The courthouse in Maple Hollow wasn't grand, just a red brick building with 3 floors and a leaky ceiling. But to me, it felt like walking into a storm. Rachel arrived 10 minutes late, flanked by a lawyer in a gray suit who looked like he charged by the hour. She wore heels and too much perfume. I came alone. Mr. Whitaker met me inside. The courtroom itself was small. A few wooden benches, a flag, a judge with kind eyes. The kids stayed outside with a counselor. The judge said it was best they didn't witness this part. Rachel's lawyer started first. He painted a picture of a mother overwhelmed, grieving and healing from personal loss, who had temporarily entrusted her children to her sister out of necessity. "She's ready now," he said. "She's recovered. She wants to rebuild her family." Then it was our turn. Mr. Whitaker spoke calmly but firmly. He presented the binder, the journal, the medical receipts, the school communications, my pay stubs. He read excerpts from the counselor's notes, how the children had bonded, how they expressed fear of being taken away. I didn't speak until the judge addressed me directly. "Miss Langley," he said, "do you have anything you wish to say on the record?" I stood, my knees shook, but my voice didn't. "I never asked for this," I began. "I missed the biggest night of my life because Rachel dropped her kids off and left without a word. I became their everything, not because I planned to, but because I couldn't walk away. I've stayed. Every day, every night, through fevers and birthdays and spelling tests. I didn't give birth to them, but I've been there, and they're not afraid when they're with me." The room was quiet. Rachel rolled her eyes. The judge folded his hands and looked at both of us for a long moment. Then he said, "Parenthood is not defined by biology. It is defined by presence, by action." He signed the order. Temporary guardianship awarded to Margaret Langley. I didn't cry, I didn't cheer. I simply let out the breath I'd been holding for months. Outside the courthouse, Owen ran up and hugged my waist so tight I thought I might fall over. Emma handed me a drawing she'd made in the waiting room. It was us, just the three of us, holding hands under a sky full of stars. "Do we have to go with her?" she asked softly. I knelt down, took her hand and said, "No, sweetheart, you're staying with me." And for the first time since this all began, I felt something I hadn't in months. Safe. Not just for them, but for myself. After the hearing, we didn't celebrate. There were no balloons, no cake, no calls from family. Instead, we stopped by the diner near the courthouse. Owen ordered chocolate chip pancakes for lunch. Emma wanted apple slices with extra cinnamon. I just had coffee, but I watched them eat like it was the first real meal we'd shared in peace. It was quiet. Not the kind of silence I'd feared before, but a stillness that came with clarity. A silence where no one was waiting for the doorbell to ring or a suitcase to be packed. The kind of quiet where life can finally begin to rebuild. We fell into a rhythm that felt more like home than anything I'd known. Owen started sleeping through the night again. Emma stopped biting her nails. On Saturdays, we made banana bread and left a loaf for our elderly neighbor, Mrs. Carver, who always left thank you notes shaped like hearts. I finally put up photos in the hallway. Ones of us apple picking, painting pumpkins, and Emma's school recital where she wore a dress 3 sizes too big because it sparkled the most. There was a warmth settling into the corners of the house. It smelled like laundry soap and toast. It sounded like laughter over cereal and storybooks. But even in that piece, Rachel didn't disappear. She took to social media like wildfire. At first, it was small posts, vague updates about family betrayal and losing her children to jealousy. Then came the videos. She cried on camera, claiming I'd manipulated the court, that I was mentally unstable, that I had always wanted what she had. It would have been laughable if it hadn't been shared so widely. People, strangers, started messaging me. Some were angry, others were confused. I ignored most of them, but the weight of Rachel's narrative began to creep in. One afternoon at the grocery store, a woman stopped me near the canned goods aisle. "You're the aunt, right?" she asked, her tone careful. I nodded slowly. "Just wanted to say I saw your sister's video, but I also saw how those kids looked at you at the farmer's market last weekend. That kind of love doesn't lie." She smiled, and I nearly cried right there between the green beans and tomato paste. But the internet didn't stop. Rachel kept posting, kept spinning her version of the truth. And though I stayed offline, the kids didn't live in a vacuum. At school, a boy asked Owen why his mom didn't love him enough to keep him. Emma's classmate repeated something her older sister had read online. I met with the school counselor again. We made a plan. We talked about truth in age-appropriate language. We taught the kids how to say, "That's not your story to tell." Still, it hurt. But in the middle of that storm, we kept living. We planted herbs in the backyard, basil and thyme and chives that Owen said tasted too grassy but kinda cool. Emma and I painted flower pots with faces. Every Sunday we walked to the park and they raced to the swings while I sat on a bench with a thermos of tea. One evening, after a particularly long day, I found a note on my pillow in crayon. "Dear Auntie Mags, thank you for brushing my hair and making me lunch and singing the sleepy song. I like it when you're the boss. Love, Emma." I folded the note and tucked it into my bedside drawer. Not because I needed proof, but because I knew I'd want to read it again someday. On the hard days, the doubt days, the world still didn't know the full story, but we did. And sometimes, that had to be enough. It started with a clip. I didn't know it existed, at least not until someone tagged me in a private message on Facebook. A short, shaky video filmed from the back of the courtroom. You could see Rachel, arms folded, frowning. Then it cut to me, standing at the witness podium, holding my breath, speaking clearly. I didn't give birth to them, but I've been there, and they're not afraid when they're with me. I watched it once, then again. I didn't recognize my own voice at first. It sounded firmer, older, like someone who had finally drawn the line between surviving and standing tall. Within 2 days, the clip had been shared over 200,000 times. Someone had added captions, called it "The Quiet Power of Real Parenthood." Influencers reposted it, parenting blogs quoted it, podcasts played it. For once, the internet turned its gaze away from Rachel's tearful rants and looked toward the woman who never asked to be seen. That woman was me. Rachel, of course, fired back. She posted another video, longer this time, full of shaky accusations and vague claims about court corruption and jealous aunts who manipulate the system. But this time, people weren't buying it. The comments had shifted. "Why didn't you call your kids for 6 weeks? She didn't steal them. She showed up when you didn't. You abandoned them and now you're mad someone loved them, right?" I stayed offline, mostly, but friends sent screenshots. Coworkers brought up the clip during breaks, their voices soft, respectful. Even patients started to recognize me. "You're that lady from the video," one elderly woman said as I adjusted her oxygen tube, "the one who took care of her sister's kids. Good for you." I didn't feel heroic. I just felt tired. But something else came too, something I hadn't expected. Validation. Not applause, not attention. Just the quiet acknowledgement that what I'd done mattered. That my presence, however unplanned, had weight. Then one morning, an email landed in my inbox. It was from the New England Parenting Summit, a regional conference on foster care, kinship adoption, and non-traditional family structures. They had seen the clip. They wanted me to speak. I stared at the message for a full minute before calling Mr. Whitaker. "They want me to talk about being a guardian," I told him, as if I know what I'm doing. His voice calm as ever. "You've known what you were doing from the beginning. That's why you're here." I said yes. And just like that, something shifted. It didn't change how early the kids woke up, or how tired I still felt after work, or how Rachel still tried now and then to make noise online. But it changed something inside me. For so long, I'd told myself I was just filling in, a substitute, a placeholder. But when I stood at that podium at the summit 2 weeks later, looking out at dozens of other guardians, foster parents, grandparents raising grandkids, and kinship families patched together by heartbreak and love, I realized something. I wasn't filling a gap. I was building something whole. I told our story, not in dramatic detail, no mudslinging, just truth, plain and steady. I spoke about missed milestones, about grilled cheese dinners, about Emma calling me the boss, and Owen crying in his sleep, about finding strength in routine and grace in chaos. And when I was done, they stood, not because I was eloquent, but because they saw themselves in the story. Afterward, one woman hugged me with tears in her eyes. She was raising her niece's twins. Another man said, "Thank you for showing us we're not invisible." I went home that night, kicked off my shoes, and found a note from Owen on the fridge. "I saw your speech. Grandma Carver showed me. You looked like a superhero in real life." It was written in orange marker. Emma had drawn a cape on the stick figure version of me. I smiled, blinking back tears, and whispered to no one in particular, I didn't try to be one. But maybe, just maybe, love makes you more than you think you are. Even when no one's watching, even when no one claps. The final court hearing was short. Mr. Whitaker said it would be. When the paperwork's in order and the children are settled, the court doesn't ask many questions. It just gives them a home. And that's exactly what happened. That morning, I wore the same navy dress for the third time. Not because I didn't own others, but because this one carried everything. The night I missed. The courtroom I stood in. The day I stopped waiting for someone else to show up. The judge reviewed our file quietly. Then he looked up, glanced at the two children sitting beside me, Owen in his dress shirt and two big clip-on tie, Emma in her pink sundress and sparkly sneakers, and said, "Effective immediately, Margaret Langley is granted permanent legal guardianship." That was it. No dramatic moment, no slow-motion hugs, just a gavel, a signature, and the truth finally made official. Owen squeezed my hand. Emma reached for her juice box. On the way out of the courthouse, the clerk handed me a sealed envelope. Inside was the final document with the gold stamp, proof that I was, in the eyes of the state, their legal mother. But I didn't need the stamp. I already had proof. It came in crayon drawings, sticky kisses, laundry piles, and sleepy heads on my shoulder. That evening, we celebrated the only way we knew how, quietly. Pizza. Root beer floats. A movie none of us finished because we fell asleep halfway through on the couch, tangled in blankets and popcorn crumbs. Later that week, Owen handed me a form from school. "Family Day is next month," he said casually. "We have to invite a parent." I nodded. "I'll be there." He grinned like he never doubted it. Then came Emma, clutching a sealed envelope. "This came for you." It was from the local school board. I opened it slowly. Inside was a formal letter inviting me to be a guest speaker at the school's caregiver appreciation event. Apparently, someone had submitted my name anonymously, along with a note, "She didn't give them life, but she gave them a world." I laughed, then cried, then laughed again, and that night, as I tucked Emma in, she looked up at me and asked, "Can I call you Mom now?" I froze. Not because I wasn't ready, but because I never thought I'd hear it, at least not like this. I sat on the edge of her bed and said, "You can call me whatever feels right." She nodded solemnly. "Okay, Mom feels right." I kissed her forehead. "Then Mom it is." I turned off the light, closed her door, and stood in the hallway for a long time. The photo frames on the wall, once empty, now held sticky-fingered memories. The house didn't echo anymore. It breathed. I used to think family was something you were born into, something fixed, pre-written. But I've come to believe something else entirely. Family is built, brick by brick, lunch by lunch, tear by tear. It's not a name on a certificate. It's who shows up at 2 a.m. when the fever spikes, who remembers which blanket feels safest, who stays. I wasn't Rachel. I wasn't their mother by blood. But I was the one who stayed. And in the quiet moments when no one was watching, that became enough, more than enough. Margaret didn't win a trophy. She didn't go viral. She just earned something far deeper, a place where she was meant to be, one bedtime story at a time. Margaret didn't just care for the children Rachel left behind. She built a life with them that no one could rewrite. Through steady love, quiet resilience, and a refusal to walk away, she turned a borrowed role into something permanent and real. This wasn't a story of bitterness. It was a story of rising without needing applause, of staying present when others disappeared. If you've ever felt unseen, unwanted, or quietly erased, let Margaret's journey remind you you don't need a title to be a parent. You don't need permission to show up. And love, real love, doesn't ask for credit. It simply stays. Thank you for watching. If this story spoke to your heart, please like, share, and subscribe. And always remember, you matter, and your love leaves a mark.